The twin suns of New Hope dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the jagged, red-hued plains that stretched toward the distant mountain range. The colony had never been much, just a scattering of settlements huddled against a hostile landscape, far from Earth's warm embrace. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in spirit. Deep in the command center, Commander Elena Voss studied the incoming transmissions with a hard gaze. The flickering hologram showed the imposing starships of the Xylar Dominion, sleek vessels with ominous angular designs that reflected centuries of conquest. The Xylar Dominion, Elena said, voice low but firm. Their empire spans 100 worlds, and now they're here. Her officers exchanged uneasy looks. Many had heard the stories. Worlds crushed beneath the Dominion's iron fist, populations enslaved or exterminated. New Hope had remained untouched, too insignificant to draw attention until now. "Why us?" Lieutenant Harrow asked. "We're barely a blip on their map." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Because we're human. Because they've never faced a colony like this before. Because we don't back down." Outside, a fleet of Dominion survey ships slipped silently through New Hope's upper atmosphere, scanning, probing. They expected submission, an easy conquest to expand their grip. But the colony was ready. Underground bunkers hummed with activity. Miners and engineers had transformed simple mining equipment into weapons and fortifications. Civilians trained, with rifles scavenged from old Earth stockpiles, their faces set with grim determination. Elena moved through the colony's main square, passing citizens who paused their work to offer quiet nods of support. She knew every face here, the teachers, the farmers, the children who dreamed of stars beyond the dusty skies. This was home, and she would fight for it with every breath. Her second-in-command, Sergeant Malik, approached, voice clipped. "The Dominion's envoy has sent a message. They demand our surrender and immediate submission to their rule." Elena's jaw clenched. "Send them a reply." She dictated the message herself, clear and unyielding. "We are humans. We will not bow to tyranny." The envoy's response came swiftly, a chilling tone laced with cold superiority. "Surrender is your only chance to avoid destruction. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." A hush fell over the command center. Elena turned to her team. "They think we'll fold, that this colony will break beneath their might. They don't understand what it means to be human." Her eyes blazed with fierce resolve. "We won't give them the satisfaction." That night, beneath the cold light of distant stars, the colony prepared. Mines were rigged with explosives, defensive turrets positioned along narrow mountain passes. Pilots checked their rusted but reliable fighters, ready for a fight that would decide their fate. In the quiet hours before dawn, Elena stood on a ridge overlooking the colony. The wind whipped through her hair as she whispered a vow to the universe. They may have 100 worlds, but they've never met one angry human colony. The dawn broke over New Hope with a crimson sky that seemed to mirror the brewing storm of conflict. The colony buzzed with nervous energy. Men and women readying weapons, repairing makeshift turrets, and reinforcing barricades. Every eye was fixed on the horizon, where the Xylar Dominion's shadow hung heavy. In the command center, Commander Elena Voss stood before a hollow map of the colony and its surrounding terrain. "They'll send a ground force first," she said, pointing to the narrow mountain passes. "Their soldiers are trained for swift, overwhelming strikes. We can't let them take the high ground." Lieutenant Harrow adjusted the display, zooming in on a cluster of rocky outcrops. "We'll set traps there. Mines, snipers, and ambush points. They won't know what hit them." Outside, the colony's militia moved silently through the rugged landscape, blending with the harsh environment. Farmers and miners became guerrilla fighters, their knowledge of the land their greatest weapon. They laid explosives, camouflaged tripwires, and prepared for the storm to come. Meanwhile, deep in orbit, the Dominion's commanders convened in the Bridge of the Imperator, a massive warship bristling with weaponry. Warlord Cathar, a towering figure with cybernetic enhancements and eyes like molten steel, paced before the officers. "This colony is an annoyance," he growled. "A minor obstacle in our path to total domination. Crush them swiftly and decisively." His voice echoed through the chamber. "Send the vanguard. Show them the futility of resistance." Back on New Hope, the first Dominion landing pods pierced the atmosphere like falling stars, streaking toward the mountains. The colony's alarms blared, and Elena's voice rang out over comms. "Positions! Hold nothing back!" The ground shook as explosions erupted along the narrow passes. Mines detonated, sending shockwaves that threw Dominion troops from their feet. Sniper fire picked off soldiers trying to regroup, and hidden ambushes tore through their ranks. Dominion shock troops, sleek, cybernetically enhanced warriors, pressed forward with ruthless efficiency. But the humans' guerrilla tactics and intimate knowledge of the terrain turned the invaders' precision into chaos. Sergeant Malik led a squad through a narrow canyon, moving silently among jagged rocks. "Wait for my signal," he whispered. When the Dominion troops advanced into the kill zone, a hail of gunfire and explosives rained down. The narrow passage became a deadly trap. One Dominion soldier, caught in the crossfire, screamed for backup. But help was slow coming. Human sharpshooters picked off reinforcements from hidden perches. Jamal Reyes, a young pilot-turned-infantryman, fought alongside the militia, his heart pounding with adrenaline. He ducked behind a boulder as plasma bolts scorched the earth nearby. "This is nothing like flying," he muttered, reloading his rifle. The battle raged through the day, the humans refusing to yield an inch. The Dominion commanders were stunned. This was not the quick surrender they had expected. On the Imperator, Warlord Cathar's fury was palpable. "Send reinforcements! They cannot be allowed to defy us!" But Elena was relentless. "We don't. Just fight for survival," she told her troops, voice steady and fierce. "We fight for freedom, for every soul this empire has tried to crush." As night fell, the mountain passes ran red with blood, but the Dominion's advance was stalled. The humans had turned their home into a fortress, their anger into a weapon. In a hidden cave beneath the mountains, Elena gathered her commanders. "This is only the beginning," she said. "They'll come back stronger. We have to be ready." Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, but on New Hope, a fierce flame burned bright, a spark of rebellion that no empire could extinguish. The bitter chill of dawn crept over New Hope's rugged landscape as the remnants of the first Dominion assault regrouped within the rocky outposts. The colony was bruised but unbroken. Commander Elena Voss surveyed the damage with a grim set. To her jaw, knowing the Empire's wrath would only intensify. The Dominion was no stranger to warfare, and the first skirmish had proven that human ingenuity alone wouldn't win the day. Their cybernetic shock troops had suffered losses but were already adapting, learning the terrain and tactics of their defiant foes. Elena turned to Sergeant Malik, who stood like a statue beside her. "We need to hit them harder, disrupt their supply lines, and keep them off balance." Malik nodded. "I've assembled a team. We strike at dawn." Under the cover of darkness, Malik's squad moved silently through narrow canyons and over jagged cliffs, using every ounce of stealth and skill. They were humans first, soldiers second, improvised but relentless. They found the Dominion's supply convoy, massive hover transports lumbering through the desert with precious fuel and ammunition. Explosives planted with care turned the convoy into a blazing inferno, sending shockwaves that echoed across the valleys. The Dominion commander's voice crackled over the comms. "Saboteurs! Find them and destroy them!" But the humans were ghosts. Jamal Reyes, now seasoned by combat, led a small team on a hit-and-run raid against a Dominion communication outpost. Using hacked Dominion tech, they broadcasted false orders, sowing confusion and forcing enemy units to turn on each other. Back on the front lines, Elena organized her militia into rapid strike teams. Their weapons were crude compared to the Dominion's, plasma rifles, but their grit was unmatched. They fought like cornered wolves, driven by the knowledge that failure meant total annihilation. The Dominion's shock troops adapted quickly, deploying armored drones and enhanced scouts to hunt the rebels. But every engagement came at a cost, as the humans' guerrilla tactics tore into their ranks. During a fierce firefight in the shadow of the Bloodstone Ridge, Elena faced off against a cybernetic commander named Zalthor, a towering figure. With mechanical limbs and an unyielding will, their battle was brutal, a clash of steel and flesh amid a storm of plasma fire. Elena's training and sheer determination kept her alive, but it was the ferocity in her eyes that unnerved Zalthor. "You cannot win, human," he snarled, voice distorted by the implants. "I already have," Elena shot back, planting a grenade that sent him crashing down, defeated but alive. The encounter became a legend among the colony's fighters, a testament to human resilience against impossible odds. Meanwhile, news of the colony's defiance spread through the Dominion's vast empire. Propaganda channels spun tales of savage humans disrupting order, but underground networks whispered a different story, of bravery, unity, and a spark of rebellion that could not be extinguished. In the command center, Elena stood before a gathering of her people, her voice steady and commanding. "They believed we were weak," she said, "but we are fire-forged in the harshest of worlds. They will learn that every human breath is a battle cry." As the sun set behind the distant mountains, the colony prepared for the next wave of conflict. The war was far from over, but the humans had bled enough to show that they would never bow. And in the heart of the frontier, the angry human colony had become a storm no empire could ignore. The fires of rebellion sparked across New Hope, igniting, a passion that rippled far beyond the colony's borders. Deep within the mountain caves turned command bunkers, Commander Elena Voss watched the flickering lights of data streams. The voices of distant worlds echoed through encrypted channels, whispers of hope, defiance, and the promise of revolution. The Dominion's propaganda machines churned relentlessly, broadcasting messages that painted humans as savage rebels unworthy of mercy. But the underground networks told a different story. A story of a colony that dared to stand, that dared to fight back when all others bent the knee. Elena's voice, calm yet fierce, became a beacon. Secret transmissions from New Hope, broadcasted across the star systems, reaching enslaved and oppressed worlds starved for courage. She spoke of freedom, unity, and the power of an angry human colony that refused to break. Meanwhile, Dominion leaders on the Imperator seethed with frustration. Warlord Cathar paced the command deck like a caged beast. "They spread like wildfire," he snarled. "This rebellion is a contagion." His second-in-command, General Yelra, offered a cold counterpoint. "We must crush the colony decisively, before their influence spreads further. If they fall, the message to the Empire will be clear." Cathar's eyes burned. No mercy, no hesitation. Back on the ground, New Hope's militia prepared for the coming storm. Civilians took up arms, mining tunnels became hidden passages for ambushes, and every man and woman was ready to become a soldier for their home. Elena convened a council of leaders, farmers turned strategists, engineers wielding jury-rigged weapons, and former soldiers hardened by years of struggle. "We can't just defend," Elena declared. "We must strike at the heart of their power." The plan was audacious, to infiltrate a Dominion supply hub deep within enemy territory and seize critical resources. It was a gamble, but one the humans were willing to take. Under cover of darkness, Elena led a small team on the mission. The terrain was treacherous, the enemy vigilant, but the humans moved with silent purpose. They breached the supply hub's perimeter with swift precision, disabling security systems and securing valuable weapons and fuel. The mission was a success, but the cost was high. Several brave fighters were lost, their sacrifice etched into the colony's collective memory. As the humans returned victorious, underground broadcasts amplified their success, inspiring other, oppressed colonies to rise. In response, Dominion forces doubled their brutality, launching punitive raids against suspected rebel sympathizers. Entire settlements were razed, and captives were taken for interrogation. The Empire's iron fist tightened, but the humans' resolve only hardened. One night, in a quiet moment away from the chaos, Elena stood beneath the stars with Malik. "They'll never break us," she said quietly. Malik nodded. "They don't understand that we fight not just with weapons, but with every ounce of our spirit." The war was no longer just about survival. It was about awakening a galaxy. New Hope had become the spark that threatened to set the entire Dominion ablaze. Elena clenched her fists. If the Empire wants war, it will get a war it cannot win. The sky over New Hope burned with fire and smoke as the Dominion's fleet darkened the horizon. The calm defiance of the colony had provoked a wrath the Empire had long reserved for the most obstinate rebellions. Warlord Cathar's command was clear. Crush the colony utterly. Make an example to all who dared resist. Orbital bombardments began before dawn, plasma cannons carving glowing scars across the mountains and settlements below. The ground shook with each explosion, buildings crumbled, and desperate screams filled the air. The once rugged but peaceful colony had become a battlefield. Inside the command center, Elena's eyes burned with steely determination as she coordinated defenses. "Hold the line," she ordered, voice calm yet fierce. "Evacuate civilians to the bunkers. Every fighter stands ready." Civilians rushed through narrow tunnels, clutching what little they could carry, their faces pale but resolute. The colony's spirit, though battered, refused to break. Sergeant Malik rallied militia units at key choke points, positioning artillery and turrets to slow the enemy's advance. The humans fought with desperation and fury, each life a testament to their unyielding will. Dominion shock troops stormed the shattered ruins with mechanical precision, their cybernetic enhancements making them nearly unstoppable. But every step forward cost them dearly. Mines, ambushes, and brutal hand-to-hand combat turned the assault into a grinding war of attrition. Jamal Reyes piloted one of the colony's battered fighters, weaving through swarms of Dominion drones in a daring defense of the last orbital platform. His every maneuver was a dance with death, but the fire in his eyes matched the fury burning across the planet below. Amid the chaos, Elena led a daring counterattack against a Dominion landing zone. With a squad of elite fighters, she struck hard and fast, using stolen Dominion tech to hack enemy systems and turn their own weapons against them. The battle raged for days. The Dominion deployed heavy artillery, siege walkers, and reinforcements from nearby systems. Yet the humans refused to yield. Each victory was paid for in blood, but the colony's heart beat louder with every clash. In the heat of battle, Elena found herself face-to-face with Warlord Cathar's flagship, the Imperator. Looming in orbit like a god of war, she knew the fate of New Hope depended on stopping that war machine. With a handful of pilots, including Jamal, she launched a risky assault on the command ship's defenses. Explosions rocked the vessel as fighters pierced the outer shield, aiming for the command core. The Imperator retaliated with brutal force, but the humans pressed on, their desperation fueling their courage. Elena's squadron dodged plasma blasts and anti-fighter turrets, striking at weak points exposed by their hacked systems. Back on the surface, the colony held the line, buying precious time for the assault above. Hours stretched into a relentless battle. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human colony stood firm, a battered but unbroken fortress of defiance. As the stars flickered in the burning skies above New Hope, Elena whispered a vow. "We will never bow. Not now, not ever." The Empire's hammer had fallen, but the colony's spirit remained unshattered, a beacon of resistance that would not be extinguished. The air above New Hope crackled with tension. The battle had dragged on longer than the Dominion expected. What they had called a swift conquest had morphed into a war of attrition, one that threatened to unravel their grip on 100 worlds. Commander Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the battered frigate Resolute, watching the Dominion's fleet maneuvering against the backdrop of swirling asteroid fields. Jamal Reyes, her youngest pilot, leaned over the navigation console, his youthful face lined with exhaustion, but lit. "By fierce determination, we've been picking off their supply runs," Jamal reported. "They're stretched thin. Their reinforcements aren't coming as fast as they hoped." Elena nodded. "Good. But we can't just wait. We have to strike at their nerve center." The plan was bold, an infiltration deep into the Dominion's command network to disable their communications and cripple their fleet's coordination. Using a combination of salvaged Dominion tech and their own ingenuity, the human engineers had developed a virus designed to spread through enemy systems. Like wildfire, the mission was risky. A small team of hackers and pilots, led by Elena herself, would breach the Dominion's flagship, the Imperator, and upload the virus directly into the core systems. As the Resolute slipped through enemy lines under cloak, Elena briefed her team. "We're not just fighting for New Hope. We're fighting for every world the Dominion has crushed. This mission will either cripple their war machine or end us all." The infiltration squad boarded sleek fighters modified for stealth and electronic warfare. Jamal's fingers danced over the controls as they dove toward the massive shadow of the Imperator. The flagship's defenses were formidable: automated turrets, energy barriers, and swarms of patrol drones. But the humans moved with precision and stealth, exploiting every weakness. Elena's fighter slipped through a maintenance hatch, entering the ship's internal corridors, a labyrinth of steel and flickering lights. Inside, the team split up. Weaving through security patrols and surveillance cameras, the tension was palpable. One wrong move, and the entire mission would be lost. At the core control room, Elena and her hacker, Mira, worked frantically to upload the virus. Outside, alarms blared. Dominion forces had detected the intrusion. "Almost there," Mira whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. "Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, the doors burst open. Cybernetic shock troops flooded the corridor, weapons blazing. "Hold them off!" Elena shouted as she engaged the attackers in fierce close combat, her training and instincts keeping her alive. Jamal and the rest of the team fought desperately to buy time. The virus spread through the Imperator's systems, causing flickering lights, communication blackouts, and weapon malfunctions. Within moments, the Dominion fleet's coordination unraveled. Ships drifted aimlessly, their sensors scrambled, and orders were lost in a haze of confusion. From the bridge of the Resolute, Elena watched as the Dominion's formation broke apart. "They don't know where to aim," she murmured, a fierce smile spreading across her face. Back on New Hope, the colony's fighters seized the opportunity. Guerrilla strikes intensified, ambushes multiplied, and supply lines were cut off with surgical precision. The tide was turning. But Elena knew the battle was far from over. The Dominion was ruthless and resourceful. They would regroup, retaliate, and come back stronger. Still, in this moment, hope burned bright. The angry human colony had struck a decisive blow, and every human warship now knew exactly where to aim. The Dominion's fury was no longer measured. It was a tempest unleashed. After the crippling sabotage of the Imperator, their mighty fleet staggered, but it did not break. Warlord Cathar's rage burned hotter than ever, driving his forces to ruthless extremes. New Hope's skies darkened again, but this time the bombardments were unlike before. The Dominion had brought their deadliest weapons, orbital siege cannons, plasma bombardment pods, and unstoppable mechanized battalions ready to crush the colony's heart. Commander Elena Voss stood among her people in the underground command bunker, eyes burning with determination. The faces around her were tired, scarred by months of relentless warfare, but unyielding in spirit. "We have come this far because we refuse to surrender," Elena said, her voice steady. "Now we fight not just for survival, but for every world the Dominion seeks to enslave." Sergeant Malik paced nearby, checking communications. Reinforcements from neighboring systems report increased Dominion movements. They're consolidating for a final assault. Jamal Reyes, back from his last mission, entered the room, his fighter's hull scarred but intact. "They want to break us here, but they don't understand what this fight means." The ground trembled as explosions rocked the surface above. The colony's defenses buckled under the siege. Elena's mind raced. They had to hold the critical outpost known as Ironclad Ridge, the colony's last natural barrier before the central settlement. Losing it meant open access for the Dominion's mechanized armies. "Prepare Ironclad Ridge for all-out defense," she ordered. "We'll make our stand there." The defenders dug in deep, barricading narrow passes and erecting energy shields powered by the colony's dwindling reserves. Every fighter knew this battle might be their last. As the Dominion siege engines advanced, Elena led a daring sortie to disrupt their supply lines once more. The attack was fierce, a deadly dance of explosions and gunfire, but it delayed the enemy's assault just enough. Back at Ironclad Ridge, the battle erupted with savage intensity. Plasma beams tore through rocky outcrops, while mechanized walkers stomped the earth, crushing all resistance. Human fighters clung to every inch of ground, their shouts and cries blending with the cacophony of war. Amid the chaos, Elena and Malik found themselves side by side, cutting through Dominion troops with ruthless efficiency. "This is more than a fight for a colony," Malik shouted over the noise. "It's a crucible. We either forge a new future or die trying." Suddenly, an explosion threw Elena to the ground. Pain seared through her side, but she forced herself up. Around her, the battlefield blurred with smoke and fire. From the wreckage emerged Warlord Cathar himself, towering and relentless, his cybernetic enhancements glowing ominously. "Your defiance ends here, human," he declared, voice echoing over the battlefield. Elena faced him, every wound forgotten in the fire of resolve. "You underestimate what it means to fight for freedom." Their clash was brutal, a storm of steel and plasma, each strike shaking the ridge. Around them, the battle paused, fighters watching the duel that would decide the fate of the colony. Elena's skill and heart pushed her through the pain. With a final desperate maneuver, she disabled Cathar's main cybernetic limb, sending him crashing down. As Dominion forces faltered, the humans surged forward, reclaiming lost ground. The siege broke, the mechanized legions retreating in disarray. The cost was high, many lives lost, the colony battered and bleeding, but the victory was undeniable. Elena stood among the survivors, battered but unbowed. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The Empire's grip is weakening, and humanity will never stop fighting." The angry human colony had endured the crucible of war and emerged stronger, a blazing symbol of defiance that would echo through the stars. The dawn broke over New Hope with a fragile golden light that seemed almost impossible after months of relentless war. The colony's landscape bore the scars of battle, smoldering ruins, shattered vehicles, and trenches carved deep into the earth. Yet amid the devastation, life stirred. Survivors moved with cautious hope, tending wounds, rebuilding shelters, and readying for whatever lay ahead. Commander Elena Voss stood on a ridge overlooking the battered settlement. Her body ached with wounds both seen and hidden, but her spirit blazed brighter than ever. Around her, the people of New Hope gathered. Farmers, engineers, fighters, children, all united by a bond forged in fire and blood. The Dominion fleet had retreated beyond the stars, shattered and disorganized. Their grip on the outer colonies weakened, shaken by the defiant stand of one angry human colony that refused to bow. Elena's voice carried through the gathering. We fought against impossible odds and won, not just for ourselves, but for every world yearning to be free. The Empire thought they could crush us, but they underestimated what it means to fight with heart. Sergeant Malik stepped forward, his face lined with exhaustion and pride. This victory is ours, but it is only the beginning. The Dominion will not give up easily. Jamal Reyes, now a hero among his peers, added, We've shown them that humanity doesn't break. We've lit a fire that will spread across the galaxy. Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. Our colony will rebuild stronger. Our voices will reach other oppressed worlds. We will stand together, a beacon of hope and resistance. Across the star systems, transmissions from New Hope inspired uprisings, secret alliances, and renewed hope. The Dominion's empire, vast but fragile, now faced a challenge unlike any before, a united front of humanity's unyielding will. As the colony began to rebuild, Elena walked among her people, greeting survivors and honoring those lost. In the quiet moments, she allowed herself to dream, not just of survival, but of peace. But peace would come on humanity's terms. In a distant Dominion command center, Warlord Cathar's defeat was dissected by leaders who now feared the growing human rebellion. The message was clear. This was no longer a war for a single colony. It was a war for the soul of the galaxy. Back on New Hope, Elena stood beneath the stars, the weight of responsibility heavy but tempered by hope. We offered peace, she whispered to the night sky. They offered blood. But now every human warship knows exactly where to aim. The stars above seem to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself recognized the spark of a new dawn, one kindled by a colony's courage, a people's defiance, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. The Empire had met its match, and humanity would never back down.